what are the stumbling blocks to recovery, and the challenges and the questions which arise as we move through this difficult journey. So the first step, obviously, is you feel terrible, you feel exhausted, and probably other symptoms as well in a kind of unique or semi-unique constellation, and you have no idea why. It just seems utterly bizarre, and it sort of feels like your life's falling apart right in front of your eyes. So most people question whether they should visit a doctor. Those that don't do risk missing another diagnosis because conditions like chronic fatigue syndrome are diagnosed by exclusion. So, just because you feel ongoing fatigue doesn't mean you have chronic fatigue syndrome. It could be a whole host of other things which are solid diagnoses, which can be picked up on blood tests and so on. So it's important to go and give your doctor a chance to exclude those other conditions. The bad thing about this, though, is when you do go to the doctor, other than getting this sort of exclusion diagnosis, is that it's extremely demotivating to hear the diagnosis, because in the next breath they will say, yes, but there's nothing we can do about it. It's incurable. So, you have to go home feeling as you do, and you have no help. And I distinctly remember the utter devastation of that sort of incurable diagnosis. I trusted in the healthcare system my whole life. I saw them as this, like, this source of knowledge and a safety net, if you will. And at my greatest hour of need, there was no help at all. There was just nothing there. And that feeling, I don't think will ever leave me. I think that's the case for a lot of people from the testimonials which I've read and the people that I've counseled and spoken to. So let's say you have been to the doctor. Your next question is, should I accept the incurable diagnosis? And if the answer is yes, obviously your options are kind of to do nothing, or to try some symptom reduction therapies. Some open-minded doctors, for example, will prescribe a low-dose LDN, which is an off-label prescription, which can kind of alleviate the symptoms of fatigue in some people, but almost never leads to a recovery. There may be some exceptions there, but I've not seen them. Let's put it that way. If you don't accept the incurable diagnosis, well, then you're in a difficult situation of questioning the status quo, maybe for the first time in your life. You're outside of the system. Someone, in a white coat with perhaps a higher level of education or more knowledge of medicine, at least, has told you something, and you have to say, I'm not going to accept that, despite the kind of weight of the medical establishment and all their combined knowledge and research and all of that. You're saying, no, I don't accept what you're saying. And this is the route I went down, and the route I kind of hope many of you will go down. And to do this, to go down this route, you have to suffer perhaps the skepticism of others who'll tell you, this is a done deal. You have fatigue, just accept it. The best you can do is some therapy and take some antidepressants, and that's it, basically. The other difficulty in this is you have to find alternatives which seem plausible. And this means approaching the world of alternative therapies. So when you question whether you're willing to try them, if you say no, you can again just do your best to live with the condition, or you can go down the line of reading up on new studies constantly, waiting for your National Health Service to do more research, staying up with the research findings, and sort of waiting for some kind of physiological explanation, which will result in a pill or something to block a certain process in your body, which may lead to recoveries. This hasn't happened yet, but many people do sort of go down this line of saying, okay, I'm not willing to accept this is incurable and just live the rest of my life. So I'm going to stay up with the research. I'm going to hope against hope that something comes up. So far, nothing has. If you are willing to try alternative therapies, it's hard to work out what to try because, there's a lot of stuff out there on the internet. There's a lot of people with competing claims, with vested interests in the thing they're trying to encourage you to do, saying, this is the best idea. You need to do X, Y, or Z in order to recover. And, it's really hard to know who to trust because you don't have this kind of National Health Service with a lot of research behind it. Often the studies behind these therapies are really small because of funding issues, and so you can look to testimonial evidence, and you can look to kind of what you read about and what you hear on forums, which I guess is another form of testimonial evidence. But you don't have a guide, you don't have accountability. There's no doctor to sit in front of and say, take this pill in this quantity this many times a week. You have to kind of decide for yourself, and there are no exact measures when it comes to alternative therapies in most cases. The next question is kind of, am I willing to go far enough? Maybe this isn't a question you directly ask yourself, but this is kind of a fact. So if you're not, you can really get stuck with one therapy. So let's say, for example, brain retraining. So this is a super effective technique for some people. It's led to recoveries in a really short space of time, but it's not a silver bullet, and it doesn't, it's not the whole picture for everyone. So some people are willing to try that, but that's the only thing they're willing to do because they've heard of it, because it's famous, and there are now some pretty big programs around it. So they'll think, I'll give that a try. If that doesn't work, then alternative therapies don't work. Or maybe they're like, I'll try meditation. Oh no, that didn't work for me, or didn't feel right, whatever. They may also miss the right therapy by not approaching it in the right way. So again, let's bring up the example of meditation. There are a bunch of different ways of approaching meditation, and different kind of reflective practices, which can have a huge impact on your nervous system. And just trying one which maybe doesn't agree with you at that moment might not lead to the results you're looking for. If you came back to it later, at a different stage in your recovery, or with a different mindset, perhaps it would. As a kind of anecdote there, I had tried meditation a load of times, and I reapproached it with an entirely new mindset, with different types of meditation, different kind of dedication level, and it was a completely different picture. And my God, was it effective. So that's just, I know that's not necessarily applicable for everyone, but that's just to show that if you might be onto the right therapy and just not be approaching it with the right strategy or the right level of commitment or something like this. And then there's, you might make some progress, but still experience regular symptoms. Like maybe brain training does work for you, but it kind of, works 80%, and you get back to living your life, and, it's only 20% illness. It's not like a huge deal. So you think, I'll just crack on. I'll just keep living. And, I don't feel amazing, but I'm not really willing to go back down the rabbit hole of looking into other alternative therapies. So now, what if you are willing to go far enough? Well, you'll experience nonlinear progress. That's almost invariable. Very, very few people just, get better and better and better and better without any dips or regressions or kind of random movements on the graph of recovery. These people kind of maintain focus. They keep trying things systematically with 100% dedication, and they treat it as an experiment. And operating within safe confines. Obviously, you're not going to just do whatever, but if you can see that it's a mind body therapy, for example, like let's use meditation as an example, or let's say transcendental meditation, you can experiment with this. You'll give it 6 months, giving it your absolute all. That would be what I would define as experimenting consistently, and not 10 minutes per day, maybe an hour or 2 hours per day. And then you can say, I really tried transcendental meditation. It helped a bit. Maybe it's not for me, at least at this stage of recovery, because that experiment doesn't tell you that that's never for you or that it doesn't work. And that's a kind of logical fallacy that a lot of people get to, where they say, I tried that in this quantity and it doesn't work for anyone. And you'll see people on forums saying that. And that's why you have to be very careful taking advice from people on forums, is because they're just going to tell you their highly biased opinion about, the way they implemented a strategy and whether or not it worked for them at that time. And then finally, the question is, can I maintain the changes I've made? Because a lot of people, when they start really trying and then committing to mind-body strategies, see this incredible progress. But if you can't maintain it, symptoms can return, as you can see here. And a lot of people hear this at the beginning of their journey, and they're like, oh, what's the point? Symptoms just come back anyway. And this isn't the case. It's just that often mind-body strategies, which are the ones that we tend to see working and that occur most frequently in recovery testimonials, they're not like traditional medicine. They're not like a pill which just kind of it goes straight to the point. It's a lot much more holistic approach. And if you return to the conditions which made you ill in the first place, you're likely to gradually get worse again. I don't want that to sound discouraging because, of course, you've got a whole load of knowledge now. You've been on the hero's journey. You've got this new outlook on life by this stage. You've gone through the hardship. You've overcome it. You've stayed consistent. You've maintained a belief that you actually can get better. And you've seen results. And you questioned the system in order to do it, which is incredibly brave. So at this stage, life can be better than it was even before your illness. And this is my case. I'm trying things I was always too scared to try. I'm really living life without fear. I'm living a social, joyful life. I've followed all my dreams. I said, what is it I actually want out of life? And I've gone for it, overcoming all the resistance, because I'd already overcome the resistance to, getting better, because there's an enormous amount of resistance and fear to trying untested or therapies which you're not sure about. And when that works out, you think, well, I've overcome that. I've overcome the biggest thing I'm probably ever going to overcome. Surely I can overcome this small hurdle in my personal life or in my work life to make life more fulfilling. And this is a story I just see repeated over and over and over again, and it's often referred to as post-traumatic growth. And you'll see this absolutely bizarre phenomenon, which I'm going to tell you is true for me also, which is that people are actually grateful that they got ill, because I wouldn't have wanted to live the rest of my life in the way I was before I got ill, because I had the blinkers on. I was not living authentically to myself, and I didn't really understand myself, my nervous system, and so many things about my mind and the complexities of my mind. So that's just an intro into the kind of journey, some of the hurdles, some of the questions you may ask yourself. I hope that's helpful, and enjoy the rest of the course.